Retro or die. The year 2002. I cannot remember a live-action horror movie based off of a video game that I was more excited for than Resident Evil. Resident Evil, especially around that time, being my favorite horror video game franchise to ever be made. This was a big deal. I remember specifically seeing ads for this in my local movie theater. Like, the posters had borrowed artwork for the Resident Evil 2 cover for some reason of the video game, and that was what they were using as like the marquees above like the movie theater and stuff like that. They were using that artwork. The commercials were a little misleading up to the movie's release. It made it seem like it was going to be pretty true and dedicated to what you'd come to expect if you'd play the Resident Evil games at all. Really focused on Umbrella, really focused around the virus and zombies. So you were thinking that you were going to get a true Spencer Mansion experience when you went to see this movie.
Deep underground, in a top secret research lab, security has been breached. A deadly virus capable of contaminating the entire world has been released.
And then going into seeing it, you're kind of let down. You're let down, but you're also uplifted in a way. This is one of those movies where I have mixed feelings about what this movie actually represented. Was it an original idea based off of Capcom's video game? Yeah, but in reality it really had no basis on the actual first Resident Evil game at all. Aside from the fact that you start out in a mansion out on the outskirts of Raccoon City, that's really all that ties into the very first game. You're introduced to a character named Alice, played by Mila Jovovich. I don't know if I said that right, maybe I did, I don't know. But you're introduced to this character. She's never existed in a Resident Evil game or in the universe in canon at all. She's a character specifically designed for this film. And we'll talk about in later movie reviews on where they went with the character and how it kind of just fucked it up altogether. The intro of the movie had me hook, line, and sinker. Being able to see the Umbrella workers in the underground lab under Raccoon City go about their daily lives, work on the virus. You're seeing the actual T virus and the G virus being made. You don't see William Birkin or Sherry Birkin or any of the Birkins running around, but you do see a lot of the Umbrella staff and their daily routine. It's kind of interesting. You know, they have all these windows that make it look like they're actually looking out on a city because they're underground. It's just really, really interesting. Umbrella as a whole has always interested me as a kid. Their whole secretive nature and their whole sterile labs, and they're working on these really nasty biohazard weapons of creatures that just really fucked up looking, something you'd see in like fucking Hellraiser. And it just always, the dynamic of being really clean and having these really grotesque monsters has always like been something that's interested me about Umbrella. So being able to see their labs in live action and their employees in live action was really, really cool. And then to see that the Umbrella headquarters, just for unknown reasons to the employees anyway, decides to kill them all. And for a brief minute, you know that the virus is out and all these people are really going to be zombies pretty soon after. And that elevator scene, I love that scene. I think it was the first time in any movie I'd ever seen an elevator scene like that, but it has been copied many times after.
What was that? Oh Christ! It's the brakes! Get out! I can't! Get out of here!
Now the main plot of the movie, is it like the video game at all? No, it is not like the video game at all. The first video game takes place in Spencer Mansion. The STARS members go in, trying to find the answers of what's been going on, why there's been disappearances and people getting murdered out here, and why it ties into this mansion and the underground facilities and all this stuff like that.
The show must go on. It's not like we're out of this yet.
I think you'd better take a look at this.
What is it?
No.
This movie, the only thing that ties in is the mansion and the underground facility. Storyline, nothing ties together with the game. But the main plot is the Umbrella headquarters, the Hive Queen, the computer, the AI, decides to kill everyone because the T-virus got in aerosol form and got in everyone's system and was infecting them without them knowing it. So she decides to nuke everyone and kill them all. The movie starts with Mila Jovovich waking up in the mansion, not knowing where she is or why she's passed out on the ground. And then all of a sudden, Umbrella's Special Task Force just busts through the window and tells her, we're going down there to find out what happened. And you kind of just go along for the ride. It's what it felt like. The movie feels very much like the whole way through, like you're going on a Universal Studios ride. That's the way it kind of felt. Or if you remember like the Terminator, live action ride that they had way back in the day, if you're that old and like me and you remember that. It's what it felt like. It felt like you were in a seat and you were just going along for the ride. I will say that everything about Umbrella's headquarters, their secret labs, the zombies, their sterile labs, even the lickers, even though, the computer animation did look and does look a little bit dated now, was pretty good for that time. I mean, it looked like the video game. I was happy with that at that time. Storyline, it's kind of your generic zombie movie. It's not really Resident Evil because it's just a basic zombie movie. It's like, we're trapped, there's zombies everywhere, we gotta get out. What it does do good is the parts where it does try to replicate stuff from Resident Evil that you would see. The room with the lasers that were cutting people up. I mean, that was very Resident Evil. There was a laser part in Resident Evil 4, just like this. The part with the Red Queen and having her being based off one of the scientist's daughter of Umbrella was a really nice touch. She's super creepy. She acts like a sadistic AI you would think act, very much Terminator-esque, mixed with the little sadistic girl from Village of the Damned. It makes for a very good Umbrella-esque type of thing. Very believable for the universe of Resident Evil.
Get out, you can't be in here.
Don't listen to anything she says. She's a holographic representation of the Red Queen.
You have to get out.
Modeled after the head programmer's daughter.
You're all going to die down here.
Some of the characters' decisions that they make in the movie are pretty fucking stupid. The part where Michelle Rodriguez's character sees her fellow, Umbrella Marine infected, and as a zombie just kind of sits there and lets him take a bite out of her after she already knows what's going to happen, is kind of stupid. Well, it's actually really stupid. I don't know why she did that. The fact that they had a cure for the virus, hence going all the way to Resident Evil 3 at that point, saying that there's a cure for the virus, they have it, they just need to get it out and give it to people. I mean, that was, whatever. It's a lot of hit or miss within this movie. There's parts that's like very Resident Evil, and there's parts very generic zombie movie, which makes it not terrible, but not great. Not super Resident Evil-y as you would like. I remember walking out of this movie in the theater at the time feeling not disappointed or let down or fucking angry at this movie. And in all honesty, when going back and rewatching this, and if you're super hardcore into Resident Evil, I can forgive a lot of the flaws of this movie. It was a very good first attempt, at least in my opinion. Were we expecting them to just recreate everything from the first game? Were they going to have a whole full cast of every single Resident Evil member that we know as of today? Jill, Chris, Wesker, Barry Burton, or are we going to have a whole cast of that? I don't think so. I think it would have been a too big and grand scale of a plot for a very first attempt at a Resident Evil movie to have fucking giant plant monsters, giant snakes, and everything else. It would be too weird for general audiences. So I understand why they didn't go, crazy with the shit that we saw in the first Resident Evil game compared to the movie. Now, when we get into our review of Resident Evil 2 Apocalypse, that is basically, I think, my fan favorite movie out of all of them. And we'll do that in the next video. The ending, very cliffhangery, very Umbrella-ish. The ending of this movie brought me back in when the middle kind of seemed to be just your generic zombie movie. The ending is what brought me back. Not only did it have the train from Resident Evil 2 in it, which I thought was really, really cool, but it also had, you know, the cliffhanger ending where Mila Jovovich's character is in an Umbrella, I guess, hospital in Raccoon City. And she has certain things flashing in her head about the experiments that Umbrella was performing, and also a short little thing at the end about talking about Nemesis and having one of the main characters being put into the Nemesis program. I remember as a kid when I saw this, or an 8th grader or whatever, I was like, holy shit, they're gonna have Nemesis in the next movie? They're talking about Nemesis? I remember that blew my mind as a fucking kid, because I loved Nemesis. And I was like, holy shit, like the next movie's gonna be like 10 times bigger than this one. Especially because, you know, it's gonna be in Raccoon City. I didn't know what to expect as far as characters, because of course the characters were so different in this movie. But, you know, they were passable. I didn't hate Mila Jovovich's character in this film. I didn't hate Alice in this film or the next film. I can't say the same about all the other films after 2 that we're going to talk about and review, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If I were to give Resident Evil today, on a scale of 1 to 10 for a movie review, I would probably give it, you know, a 7, an 8 if I was being super kind, but a 7. It's not terrible, it's not average, it's not great, super great, but it's actually pretty good. Especially for a video game based movie off of a horror franchise based off of bioweapons that, you know, general audiences didn't play, didn't know about, couldn't probably even understand anything that Capcom Japan was fucking even thinking at that time. I think for that, what it was a pretty good, decent first attempt at a Resident Evil movie. So yeah, that's my opinion. I really do think that the first Resident Evil movie does hold up, even though, you know, it has its flaws. It's a video game based movie, and it actually is pretty damn good, in my opinion. It's not fucking Mario. That makes me happy a lot, because they could have fucked this up really bad. If you really want to think about it, for horror movies in general, horror movies get fucked up all the time. They're either the plot falls apart because it's so stupid, has so many holes, the monsters just are fucking stupid, and especially if it's a video game based movie, they go so far off the rails that it doesn't even represent the IP that it took the name from, much like Silent Hill Revelations did. So yeah, that's my opinion. Resident Evil first movie, great first attempt. I highly recommend, you know, go watching it if you haven't, and yeah, don't expect it to be the fucking video game, because it's not at all. But I do think it's a solid, great first attempt of a movie, great video game movie, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit the like button if you liked it, subscribe, it helps me a lot. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you guys on the next movie review for Resident Evil Apocalypse, which is basically Resident Evil 2, 3, and Code Veronica all thrown into one fucking movie, with all the fucking fandom thrown into it. Anyway guys, this is Forrest, this is Retro or Die. See you on the next video.